You're listening to Parenting Our Future with certified parent coach Robbin McManne, author of The Yelling Cure and founder of Parenting for Connection. My podcast is all about providing you with the tools and solutions you need in your parenting so you can create the family you always wanted. Hi parents, it's Robbin McManne here. Just before you dive into this episode, I want to invite you to join my new membership site for free. My site, which is at www.parent-toolbox.com, is the companion to my award-winning podcast where you will find game-changing tools and resources from me and from my expert guests who are among the top leaders in the parenting world. Join for free today at www.parent-toolbox.com. Now back to the show. Hey everyone, it's Robbin McManne here. Welcome back to Parenting Our Future. And today we are talking about gay couples. We're talking about couples that bring children into their family and create beautiful families through adoption or surrogacy or all the different ways. And I have a really special guest here to talk about this. I have Steve Disselhorst here, and he specializes in personal and professional leadership development and consulting for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, and is the author of the memoir, Determined to be a Dad, A Journey of Faith, Resilience, and Love. And before founding his firm, Steve worked for Genentech, a biotech company, and is a veteran healthcare worker. So you've had a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And currently you serve on the San Mateo County LGBTQ Commission and is a speaker for the San Francisco LGBTQ Speakers Bureau. And most importantly, Steve is a father to two wonderful children who are the center of his world. Welcome, Steve. I'm so happy to talk to you and to talk about this book that you've written. I love everything that you're doing. It's so great, so important.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I love the work that you're doing. Always working on being a better parent and, and overcoming the shame and punishment models of our learned childhoods and really trying to be a better dad every day. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I love that. I love that you said that because it doesn't matter how your family came together. I am pro-family, no matter how you come together, right? And what I know is that when you have a family and you bring all these different personalities together, we bring our past as parents, we bring our past childhood into the mix, there's a lot going on and we can have conflict and frustration, and it's hard enough to raise a typical kid, never mind a child with some extra needs or different things like that. And so, definitely, no matter how you come together, I can help your family, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We want to talk about you and your story. And so tell me why you wrote this book, Determined to be Dad.
Yeah. Writing this book, it's a memoir, but it's really a book about hope. Right. And so I wrote Determined to be Dad for the many, many LGBTQ people, millennials, parents of LGBTQ people, and also for straight folks that are having fertility challenges and facing some obstacles creating their family, and really wrote this to help people have hope and also to share with them some of the process of creating a family through adoption, but really also sharing the emotional highs and lows of that journey. Because there is tons of literature about how to make a family through sort of alternative means, but we hear less about the emotional journey of that, and really the triumphs and the struggles along the way. And so I wrote this to help folks with those and really to give folks hope.
That's really great. And so you say there's highs and lows. So enlighten us. What would those be? What do those look like?
Oh boy. Wow. Well, they're I'll start with our daughter's adoption. We in 2010 embarked on the journey to be parents through adoption. We went live with an adoption agency in basically March of 2010, and it was 2 full years before our daughter came into our lives, and we had been in contact with 14 different women over those 2 years. So about one different woman every 2 months, and a vast array of women. We had one woman that was a 49-year-old grandmother who was pregnant with her sixth child, and down to a 17-year-old high school student who was Mormon and was having a relationship with a young man, and was faced with this decision around how she was going to take care of that child. And so with that 14 encounters with these incredible, really courageous women, we got our hopes up on multiple occasions that one of those children would be come into our lives and into our home, and that fell apart over and over. And so there was that excitement, hope, nervousness, tension, really trying to put on the best face, trying to in some ways sell yourself to a person that's making the most difficult decision of their entire life, and then to have the letdown afterwards. And in one case, we had a woman that was that scammed us. So it's basically what they call a psychological scam, where she wasn't pregnant, but she reached out and told us she was with child, and she did it she was very careful how she did it, and she knew her time, and she contacted us late on a Friday night when our adoption agency was off for the weekend, and we had this really 48 hours really intense conversation with her. And then finally found out on Monday morning, she texted us with like all of this religious damnation, and
oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
So she set you up only to
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And what was fascinating about it is that we obviously we had her phone number, because we ended up texting her, and it was like she sent us pictures of ultrasounds. I mean, it was really, really intense. It was basically like, this child is yours if you want it. And then Monday rolls around, and we talked to our social worker, is basically, what's the phone number? And I like give her the phone number, and they're like, oh yeah, that person is
known.
is a known scam. And unless they ask you for money, there's nothing illegal. So unless they ask you to like, send me money for, I need money for food to take care of the child, myself or the child or whatever, since there's nothing that can be done. So it was really like, that was really intense.
So you got your heart broken like 13 times.
Yeah.
Because there's one time that you didn't, and you did.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yay. Oh, cute. If you're listening to this, you have the best smile on your face. Everybody who's listening, it's adorable. You can tell you love your daughter. It's so great. Yes. And she's 9, so she's creeping into those, getting ready for tween and teen years. So that will change things a little bit. But I love it. I love it. And I love the love and dedication that it takes to go through this. Like, you really, really want that child, right? Yes. You really, really do. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I have, and I'm not saying this is you by any stretch of the imagination, but I have worked with parents before that have gone through this, and they have a child who's very difficult. And so there is this underlying guilt that, we worked so hard to get this child, and oh my gosh, I don't know that I'm cut out to be the parent. Yeah. Right. And so that's a really real situation. And I think there's a lot of shame around that too, right? A lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And if anybody's listening that has gone through that and feels that, I totally get that. I really do. And I have helped so many parents through that. So just want you to know that if you have adopted children, or you've, had a surrogate and you're struggling, or if you're a regular parent, this is the work that I do to help you through that. So here's the thing. You've gone through all of this, and you had some personal stuff going on too, right? Like you struggled between, you had your daughter, you adopted your daughter, then you adopted your son. right? And then you struggled with an illness as well, right?
Yes.
And so that has got to really just, I mean, this is your memoir, right? And so this is also part of that actually life happens too. This doesn't all happen in a vacuum, right? It wasn't just the adoption, then it was having your family and then being really sick too.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with our daughter's adoption, it like sort of, it was really difficult with the, 14 contacts. And then once we got her adoption, like the family that placed her with us, they're amazing. Like we had this amazing, incredible connection. We were there, in the hospital with them when she was born. We have, had this 9-year relationship. It's been really beautiful. And then when we decided to go a little bit of a different route. So our daughter was a private adoption. And so for our son, we decided to go through the foster program, and his adoption actually turned out to be much more difficult than hers.
Okay.
And
Okay, wait. So
yeah.
you went through 14 possible surrogates, is that right? Or possible mothers, right?
Yes.
For your daughter.
Yeah.
And your son through the foster system was harder. Oh,
Yes.
Steve, oh my God. Wait, and your book is about faith, resilience, and love. Yeah, resilience, underlying resilience. Holy cow.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
Well,
tell me about it too. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place.
Yeah, between our son and our daughter, it was they're 3.5 years apart. So we actually, after our daughters, we sort of took, the first year as a new parent is so hard.
Yeah.
For two men having a child, we actually put a lot of pressure on ourselves. There's a lot of cultural messages that say that women are the primary caretakers. And so we also were just like really trying to prove who we were as parents.
Yeah, okay.
So that first year was pretty hard. And then life started to sort of normalize, right? Like, we had, good caretakers and helpers who were both working full-time jobs. And, but, our family didn't feel like it was quite, complete. And we started to think about the second child and, decided that we wanted to go a route that, really help a child that was really in need. And then we decided, the foster system. And what happened there, which was really interesting, is that we got a call about our son, and they said, birth parents have not been in the picture. Well, their, the formal paperwork of their parental rights being relinquished has not been completed. They are not around. So this is going to be really easy. It's going to be straightforward. And, based on sort of how he came into the system, this is going to be, a pretty straightforward thing. And so we were like, okay, so we made the decision. He had some medical stuff going on that I write about in the book. He had sort of he had been in with another foster family, and then there was an accident. And so he was removed from that family. And so we didn't have all the information, but once we made the decision to like do it, we were all in. And then literally we got him, and 2 days later we got a phone call and said, oh, birth mom is back in the picture and is clean and sober and now wants to re-engage. And so the next year and a half was very, very challenging. And we ended up having to, she got into a rehabilitation program, and we ended up having to do twice weekly visits with her where we would drop him off. So she was, working on her parenting skills. And, she'd had a supervisor there, but we were like bringing him to this location, dropping him off twice a week. And that went on for 6 months. And then she continued to progress in her rehabilitation, which was all great news. Like, good for her. We're glad, like, she's getting healthy. But as that the time went on, then there was discussions around like, do we start to do overnights with her? And, all the signs were sort of going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Are they going to, reunite her with him? And we were just terrified. It was just
Yeah.
terrifying.
So I'm sure part of you is, so you got him thinking
Yeah.
he would be yours, and
Yes.
now you're in a custody situation with her. And I'm sure part of you is like, well, it would be great for him to have his mom, but then we've put our heart in here.
Yeah.
So how did that make you feel? You must have been in limbo. You must have been like torn apart by that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was incredibly hard. Like, how we know things in our head, like we knew going into it, it was a possibility,
Right.
but we didn't know what it would feel like,
Mm.
like when your child was born, right?
Yeah.
Like you're holding them and caring for them every second of their lives, right? Until you go back to work and someone else, I mean, they become you, and right. Like, and so all of a sudden we were like, oh, we knew this was a possibility, but yet we didn't really believe that it could happen. So I remember, and I write about this in the book, is like I would drop him off. I would be, smiley, happy, bring
Mm.
him to her. And I would get in the car and I'd go around the corner and park and just break down and just,
Oh.
just be like, oh my God, is this like, if he leaves our lives, like
Oh.
I'm just going to be beside myself.
Oh.
And so it was a lot. What ended up happening was we planned sort of a family trip to go visit my family in the Midwest. Um, and it was really, they hadn't met him yet. It was really to bring him to meet him. And his birth mother had been doing really well. And I think that we took a week off and we took him there. And I think that week that she didn't get to see him really was really hard on her. And she ended up like falling out of her program.
No.
And
Oh.
so that was really sad. So we came back and then she had like sort of disappeared again. And
Oh.
so, but then we had sort of the whole legal like thing to go
Yeah.
through. And so, it was another full year that we had to deal with all of that.
Oh my gosh. And so
Yeah.
her back and forth, and so do you have a relationship with her now, because he's your son now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what's interesting is we don't directly,
Mm.
like I have an email for her and I email her and we've sent her things, but she's
Mm.
never really responded. But
Oh.
he has many siblings, and one
Oh.
of his siblings was adopted by a family that's about 5 miles from us. And so
Oh.
that family, and that was a voluntary adoption for her. And that family, the
Mm.
mom is in touch with her. And
Okay.
so we kind of, and so my son and his half brother, we spend a fair amount of time with them. And so that mom is in contact. So I kind of indirectly like, like
Mm.
she talks to her. And so then she can give updates on our son. And so it's
Mm.
kind of like, we kind of have some
Yeah.
connection with her.
Right.
Not a lot, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh man, that's tough. Can I ask, was that hard on your relationship going through all of this? The first adoption, then this, then you getting sick, which do you attribute getting sick to this whole stressful situation?
I think there's something there. I don't know that I can ever prove it, but I was
No.
diagnosed with cancer 6 months almost
Oh.
after my son's adoption was finalized. And I do think that the I think that it took a toll on our relationship. In all honesty, I think that the the fact is that we had to spend so much time and energy on sort of the adoption part of it and all, and
Mm.
then once, like with our son, once he came into our home, like we still had all of this ongoing adoption stuff going on for a year and a half. So like, and then you have a child, like an infant, right? Like you're dealing with all that, you know as any parent with a newborn, infant, right? Like you have very little time for each other to begin with. And then on top of that, we had all of this adoption stuff. So,
Oh man, that sounds so hard.
yeah.
Really, really hard. I can only imagine that must have been really, really tough. So I want to change gears just a little bit, and I want to talk about really one of the reasons why you wrote this book too is that we're looking at the future of families, and we're looking at statistics with millennials, right? And we've got 3.8 million millennials that are considering expanding their families, meaning adoption or surrogacy or adding children to their family. And we have 2.9 million who are actively looking to adopt or surrogacy or whatever, right? Expanding your family is the right way to say it. So I want to say a couple things about that. So first and foremost, it is going to be a little bit more mainstream, and you are in the United States, I'm in Canada. So there's differences in both of our countries, but not only that, in the United States, you've got differences per state, and then even is it just state by state it's different?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that you really want to share is that there's hope, right? There's hope for these families. But also, if you are parents and you are a family that is with straight parents, and you have kids and you have a child who is LGBTQ, right? You may, and your child has come out to you, you may feel a real sense of loss as a parent.
Yes.
Because you think, oh, there goes my chances of being a grandparent. I hear how great it's going to be when I can send the kids home with their parents and just spoil them and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, we live in in the US, and I think Canada is similar, but we live in a heterosexual culture, right? And so,
right.
Our culture is very much man and woman. And it's, I think really, that's what kids are brought up with. And even if you are brought up with like two dads, most kids' books are very like heteronormative, right? Like it's part of the work that I do with some of the schools is around like sort of how do we create more diversity in books and education so that, kids can see different images. And so, yeah, I think there's a big loss of identity for parents, right? Like, because, and I think there's also, I think we're still in this place of thinking that there's, being LGBTQ is, there's something wrong with you. And so I think a lot of parents internalize, like if their child does, start to come out or show interest in same-sex relationships, that they start to internalize like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Like, but the standard is that heterosexual is good and that queer or LGBTQ is not good, right? Like, and so there's very much this like sort of binary thinking. And so I think for a lot of parents, they go through like loss of their own identity and then loss of the identity of their child. And then I think they go through fear of like feeling like they don't know how to parent their children. Like this child is like different than, our older one is, he likes girls, and like now I've got this other one and I don't really know what to do. And so it kind of makes people really question themselves. And it really, there's a lot there. And so I would say to your listeners, that if their children are starting to sort of demonstrate or show interest in same-sex relationships, it's really try, as you demonstrate in all of your podcasts, like try to be curious, right? Like ask questions, try to understand, right? Like, and just try to be open, right? Like just try to be open. And I think even with this generation, the younger generation, there's the word LGBTQ now, is many people say queer. It's like it's moving to the spectrum of being less identity focused around I need to proclaim I'm gay, or I need to proclaim I'm lesbian. Like there's this whole world of pansexual now, and right, like this
Yes.
broadening. And so I think it's um, less about labeling and more about trying to like really understand, like, what does your child feel about that relationship with that, if it's a girl and it's another girl, like, is this a platonic? Are you like attracted, or do you have, all the things that we feel when we feel our first love, the butterflies in our tummy and all that stuff, right? Like trying to just understand that and just
Mhm.
trying to create space and witness it and not really
Yes.
name it. I think
Yeah.
those would be the things I would say.
And I would say don't get stuck in it too, because
Yeah.
they are so they're experimenting, they're learning, they're growing. And so you say this one day and maybe you say something else the next day, or what have you, right? And here's the thing that I have to say I'm excited about is the fact that it is becoming more normal and mainstream in
Yes.
terms of the shows that we watch, right? There's often a gay character. Now we're seeing, trans actors, actresses, that is great to be able to see that, because these kids in these heteronormative families, trying to use the proper language myself, they don't necessarily see those examples in their own family. So that's got to be a challenge for them too. And so, yeah, I think that connection is everything, that if your child comes out to you, you just need to affirm, right? And so I learned that when I interviewed John Sovak on my podcast a while ago, and we talked about how to support your child in their coming out. And so anybody listening, if you have a gay child, and can I just say gay? Can I say gay? And that is overarching, or do you see it? Like, I don't even know, right? Like,
Yeah,
how
it's
do
okay.
I
It's
know, right?
okay not to know. We're learning. We're all learning. I think that
Yeah.
the term would be LGBTQ plus
Okay.
now is almost like, and
Okay.
folks kind of intersect that with queer, like use back and forth
So
queer as
queer
well.
is almost the catch-all phrase now.
Queer is
Gay
like even
is
above like LGBTQ, because there's now LGBTQ is now there's LGBTQI, which is intersex folks. Have you ever had any folks on your show around that are intersex, children that are born intersex?
I don't even know what that means. No.
So intersex is where they are when they're born, they have the anatomy of both male, female.
Oh,
There's a So they, and sometimes it's some of it is internal, like
right.
they could present with a penis, but actually beneath have a vagina. And so and oftentimes parents are faced with intersex children. And
Yes.
when they're born, they're asked like
To
immediately
choose.
to do surgery. And so there's a whole
Oh, yeah.
movement to, and actually in California, there's been some laws passed around like not doing surgery until the children are old enough to decide like what is my true, because what do I want for my genitalia, right?
Oh my
um
goodness. Yes, that's tough. Does the different genitalia somehow influence hormonal
I'm not
levels?
an expert on this. This is
Yeah,
an
I'm so
area of
curious.
growth.
Yeah.
It's an area of growth for me as well. But we started talking about like the intersex community is now being part of the LGBTQ community. Like, so it's
Mm,
broad.
yeah.
And so I would say gay is kind of an older term.
Okay. Well, and I feel like I don't want to
That was a
use.
long answer. Sorry.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't want to use queer because I know some people are offended by that too, right? So I don't know what to say. I
Okay.
just want to be on the record to say that love is love. I love whoever. But here's what I know for sure. Here's what I know for sure. Having my best friend from high school, we aren't that close anymore because he moved away to the Dominican Republic, and now he's back in Canada and lives on the other side of the country. But we were as close gets. And and he came out as gay when I was 19, and he has transitioned from female to male. And so what I saw during that time, and during that time of coming out first as a lesbian and then transitioning, was how much pain there was in that community because the parents didn't accept them, because those people's parents didn't accept them. And what a tragedy that is, because there was suicide, there was massive drug use, massive alcoholism. And that is when I swore never to put my kids through that. Sure, well, I was just about to say, sure, I'd love my kids to be straight. Actually, it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter to me. And I know that, my husband and I, after many conversations, he agrees. Love is love. And we just want our kids to be happy and be good people who give love freely and receive love freely too. Right. So I think that it's just important to say that yes, it may scare you and may make you question things, but the love is everything, the connection and affirming your child for who they are, no matter how they show up, even if it's not your choice, even if you don't like that, it's still important to support your child first.
Yeah. And I think that's, the idea that we, in many ways as parents, we're guides, right? And if we're good guides, we're there to help them fully embrace who they are, and we're less trying to push on them who we are and who we want them to be, right? Like, this is your work, right? Like, this is what you do. It's about, us changing in order to allow them to be fully themselves. And I think my first lesson with this was when we were deciding on adoption. It was around like, do you want to have an open adoption versus a closed adoption? And a closed adoption is where your child doesn't know the birth parents, right? Like the court records are closed. And so there's no relationship with the birth parent. And open adoption is where your child knows who their birth parents is and may be in a relationship with them of some sort. And I remember when that first question first came up, and I was kind of like, am I going to be threatened by them having a relationship with their birth mother? And then I thought, and all the literature shows that for their development, their identity, that them knowing who their birth parents is much better. And so that was like the first stepping into going, is this about me or about them?
Yeah.
It's about them, actually. So it's going to be awkward for me in the beginning to know that this is but it doesn't matter, because that's what's best for my child, right?
Exactly.
And that was the first, and it was so fascinating sharing that with like family and friends, and they were like, well, that sounds like really like you're going to know the birth parents and you're going to have a relation. That sounds kind of weird. And I was like, it doesn't matter what it feels like for me.
Yeah.
Like, if I feel threatened by that, then I got a bigger problem. Like, I'm insecure, right? Like, right. So like, well, if this is what's going to be best for Caitlin and Matthew, my kids' names here, I just shared them. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, but let's be honest though, because the parents get into this trap, not just about this subject, but like, well, if my kid's going to play this sport, they need to be the best at that sport. If my kid's going to go to university, it's going to be the best university. You're going to go to business school, you're going to go to the best business school, right? So in other words, what you're saying is running your own agenda is not the right way to go. You've got to honor who your child is and honor their choices, because yes, we are guides. And at some point we are no longer invited to guide them. They need to guide themselves, or we need to be there waiting for them to ask us, what do we think? Or what should we do? Right? You need to take a step back. And that's really hard. And as a parent of teenagers, they are pushing me away. I feel it. I know it. I pout about it. And I also know it is the natural way of things. And it's just so important that I give them the space to be who they are, even if that's not my choice. It's not about me. Right? And so you will be faced with that soon too, my friend Steve.
I know. I'm preparing myself. I actually keep teasing the kids saying, oh, maybe we'll have another kid, right? Like, because I'm like, maybe we'll adopt another kid. And they're like, no, let's get a dog. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
so cute. Cause I'm just like, I know that's coming. Like, I
Yeah.
know that right
I'm
now
here
there's
for you. I'm
so
here
much.
for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming back when that happens.
Yeah. We'll have a whole therapy session in our next edition with Steve Disselhorst. Okay, well, we got to just really quickly talk about your book because you are giving us a free chapter for the Parent Toolbox. Which, look, parents, this is such important information if you do have a child who is LGBTQ. If this is something you're facing in your family or you're curious about it, or you know another family, please share this. Look, one of my sons, one of his best friends, she is they them, right? So it's happening all over. You are going to find more and more, I think, open and younger children embracing the, how do I say it, Steve? Embracing their own identity. Would you say that?
Non-binary sort of like
Yeah.
pansexual. Like, I mean, it's so broad. Like, I think
Yeah.
the more you just ask questions.
Yeah. But it
Like,
makes it hard to talk about because I want to say, oh, this girl is non-binary, but that is
yeah,
an oxymoron. Right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am stumbling my way through it, and I'm doing the best that I can. All I can say is, I love the love. So, what about your book though? So you can get the free chapter at the parent-toolbox.com, and where can people find your book?
Yeah. So the book can be found on Amazon, Determined to Be Dad. You can also buy it directly from my website. So determinedtobedad.com.
Love it.
And so either of those places. And then obviously I do coaching as well, like you, and I do diversity inclusion consulting. So you can find me at stevedisselhorst.com.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm on all the social. My name there's not a lot of me, so it's pretty straightforward. Steve Disselhorst, Disselhorst. You can
And
find
all
me.
of that will be in the show notes. So people will not struggle to find you. And of course, it'll all be in the Parent Toolbox as well. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and for being open, honest, and vulnerable. We're all better for it. So thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Robbin.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robbin McManne, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and connection.